Hello and welcome to the Outdoor Recreation Council of BC's June webinar. My name is Ryan Stewart and I am hosting today's webinar. I'm going to give folks a few minutes to get into the Zoom room here. And while they do that, I'd love to know a little bit more about who is tuning in today. The format of these webinars is such that you can see us on the panel and the host, but we can't see any of you. So I'd love for you to just jump in the chat there, add your name if you're affiliated with an organization, and where you're logging in from. And because this Saturday is BC Trails Day, which is one of the events organized by the Outdoor Recreation Council, I'd also like you to tell me what you got planned for the weekend, especially if it's trail related, but doesn't have to be. And if you're looking for ideas of what to do for Trails Day, I'm going to pop in a link into the chat for everybody, and you can see where all the different events are. And when you're popping it into the chat, make sure that you address it to everyone. There's a little drop-down menu there, and you can just pick everyone and not the panelists. For myself, I live in the Comox Valley on Vancouver Island, and my plan is to check out one of the BC Trails Days organized by the Horse Council of BC here in the Valley, and then probably head up to Forbidden Plateau and go for a wander on some of the trails up in the meadows there. They're snow-free very early this year, as I'm sure a lot of places are in the province. So looking forward to get up and do that. And if you are heading out to one of the BC Trails Day events, make sure that you bring your camera and take some photos and video because we have a contest going on. I'm going to pop a little link in for that as well, that you can try and enter. There's some great prizes for that. So yeah, we're starting to get some people in there from Nicola, Rossland, more people from the island. Great to see. All right. I think we'll get going here. So I'm just going to share my screen. Just bear with me for a second. All right. Hello again. My name is Ryan Stewart, and I work on community engagement with the Outdoor Recreation Council of BC. That includes organizing and hosting our webinars. Thanks for joining us today. Today's topic is Watersprite Lake, successes and lessons from recreation management. We are joined by a panel of folks from the British Columbia Mountaineering Club and Rec Sites and Trails BC. They're going to tell us about their efforts to develop a recreation site and access at Watersprite Lake in the Coast Mountains near Squamish, and some of the lessons they've learned along the way. You can see from this picture and the next few slides, this is a stunning area. The BCMC brought me the idea for this webinar, and I jumped on the chance to share it with everyone because I think it touches on so many of the challenges and opportunities that are facing outdoor recreation today. Before we get into all of that, though, I've got a little bit of housekeeping. First, I'll start with a land acknowledgement. I'm grateful to live, work, and recreate on the traditional lands of the Comox First Nation here on Vancouver Island. In the spirit of reconciliation, we like to give a small donation to a First Nations project or charity. And because today's webinar topic is on the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation, we've made a small donation on behalf of the BCMC to the Squamish Lillooet Cultural Center. This is a fantastic museum in Whistler. If you haven't been there before, they also run some cultural programming, super interesting stuff up there. Definitely worth checking out. Here's today's agenda. I'll give a short introduction, then hand things over to our speakers. After their presentation, we'll have a dedicated question and answer session. If you have any questions during the webinar, please pop them into the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. One of our guests might answer them directly. Otherwise, I'll do my best to ask them during the Q&A session. We'll wrap things up around 1 p.m. Pacific time. Immediately following the webinar is a super short survey. It'll pop up in your web browser. Please stick around to fill it out. It's a great place to give us your feedback about this webinar, future topics you'd like us to tackle, things like that. And we are recording today's webinar, and we'll send a link out via email later this week, along with any resources and follow-up stuff that we talk about today. This webinar is part of a monthly series hosted by the Outdoor Recreation Council BC. The ORCBC represents about 100 organizations and over 100,000 British Columbians. They're snowmobilers and hunters, climbers and hikers, conservation organizations, and mountain bike clubs. It's a very diverse group. And the ORCBC is the only provincial organization that represents all of the people who love to recreate in nature and outdoors. We do this in many ways, including advocacy, capacity building, funding, events, and education like this webinar. As a nonprofit, we rely on donations and outside funding sources. You can make a donation. They're all tax deductible and eligible for a tax receipt, and you can find out more about that at orcbc.ca. Let's get on with today's webinar. As I mentioned, we have a panel of folks from the BCMC. They're going to do more in-depth introductions in a moment, so I'll keep it brief. We have Greg Hamilton, the current president of the BCMC, David Scanlon, who's a past president and the current president of the BC Mountain Federation, and Watersprite really is because of Dave's vision and hard work. We have Cliff Eschner. He's a longtime BCMC member, and he is currently one of the operators of the Watersprite Recreation Site. And we have Alistair McCrone from the district recreation office for the Sea to Sky District for Rec Sites and Trails BC, and he's played a pivotal role in making all of this possible. So I'm going to stop sharing and hand things over. Oh, I'll also mention we have Winifred up there at the top of the screen. She's the tech person who's keeping all these guys in line today and making sure this presentation runs smoothly. So she is here to help with that, but I'm going to walk over, stand back and mute myself and let you guys take it over. Thanks, Greg.
Do appreciate the opportunity for the BCMC to tell this story. You'll hear that it's 20 years in the making from when Dave Scanlon first had the vision here to build a trail and hut, and then subsequently really open it up through a provincial recreation site. So, the British Columbia Mountaineering Club has been around since 1907. The origin of it, there was a group of 7 climbers, Vancouver-based climbers, that climbed what we call today Mount Garibaldi, the name of which will be changing in the near future to Itchnay, which is a Squamish name meaning muddy waters. So the group that first summited Garibaldi on their way back decided that they had such a good time that maybe there was other people in Vancouver that would want to share in their experiences climbing mountains in and around Vancouver. And so in the fall of 1907, they set up the British Columbia Mountaineering Club. We've been running for basically 120 years. The club itself, we have 1,400 members today. It is entirely driven by volunteers, and we do things from um, do maintenance on trails. We build huts, we build websites, strangely enough, and we are have a very active mentorship program and are longtime advocates of protecting wild places, particularly mountains. So, if you've ever stepped foot in Garibaldi Park, the British Columbia Mountaineering Club was instrumental in getting that area protected with a campaign that ran from 1914 to 1927 when the park was ultimately protected in perpetuity. Burke Mountain Park, another park that's near the Vancouver Lower Mainland, the BCMC was heavily involved in that. The Stein is another area that the BCMC was involved. So we're here to tell you a little bit about Watersprite. The BCMC has a long time history of building huts. We started in the 1960s. We currently operate 5 on our own, and we're in partnership with the Spearhead Hut Society, who operates the Keys and Clare Hut, and also the soon-to-be Macbeth Hut. The construction will start this summer, and that's on the Spearhead. So you can see in the picture here, our huts are all based on, or mostly based on, a Gothic arch design, and that has been adopted by other clubs around the province. So if you've ever seen one of these, it was BCMC volunteers that first came up with the idea, first started building these, and then started to build them around the Coast Range, and subsequently other clubs adopted the blueprints. We shared them. I'm going to tell you a story here. Dave and Cliff and Alistair are going to tell you the story about Watersprite. But this is really a story about relationships and partnerships. You don't get to a space like where we are at Watersprite with the infrastructure built in place so the public can enjoy the area without entering into a lot of partnerships and relationships. And Dave Scanlon has a really, really unique skill in order to build these type of relationships. If there's ever a guy that can walk into a room and leave you feeling great about who you are and the work that you do, it's Dave. It's really, really amazing to watch him put these things together. So not all of these relationships have been easy, but certainly they've been there. So, for example, just a quick one, the Watersprite Trailhead lies at the end of the Skookum Creek Run of the River project. They operate a power station, and so they keep the road open for us. They grade it, and the trailhead's at the end. They built the parking lot. Some other ones, snowmobile clubs have the BCMC had reached out to local snowmobile clubs in the area and asked them to please be kind and uh, don't use the Watersprite area. This was prior to it being a recreation site, and the snowmobile clubs in the area have been respectful of that, of which we're very grateful. And then finally, government. You don't get a recreation site without the government being supportive of it and helping you get there. So those are just three examples. There's a lot more. So, where is Watersprite Lake? As Ryan mentioned, it's in southwest BC, approximately 20 kilometers east of Squamish. It's at the end of a Forest Service road. It's about a 25-kilometer drive when you pull off the Sea to Sky Highway there. The parking lot is, I think, at about 600 or 700 meters, and then the lake itself is at 1,400 meters. So you'll notice in the center graphic there, the water sprite is tucked right in the corner of where Pinecone Burke Park meets Garibaldi Park. And that top, if you look in the graphic on the right there, the northern boundary of Watersprite Lake Recreation Site actually butts up against the corner of Garibaldi Park. So we do have some members here that access some of the wilderness components of Garibaldi Park through Watersprite. Okay, so having said all that and introduced the area, I'm going to turn it over to Dave Scanlon. Dave, as Ryan mentioned, is a two-time past president of the British Columbia Mountaineering Club. Dave has given thousands of hours in volunteerism, his time to the British Columbia Mountaineering Club and other organizations. So he currently sits as the president of the British Columbia Mountain Foundation, which is a charitable organization that the BCMC helped set up about 10 years ago. And it provides grants to organizations that want to add infrastructure into wild places. It also assists with preserving or otherwise understanding some of the historical aspects of mountaineering in British Columbia. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dave.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for everybody for coming today. Just a quick note on the Mountain Foundation. I did not start the foundation. That was one of our past presidents, Wilson Edgar, back in 2017. He got it up and formed, and since then, I've been pretty much the chairperson. It's one of those situations, where nobody else wants it, but anyways, I'm there. Back in 2006, at one of our BCMC board meetings, one of the board members says, we haven't built a cabin in a while. And, where would we build one? And Todd Ponzini at the time said, it's one of those things, I know where there's a lake. And things started from there. From 2006 onwards, I started leading trips up to Watersprite Lake. Most of them were winter ski trips. did that for 3 years, and the idea was, what did the members think? Would this be a suitable place for a cabin? And to a person, everybody agreed. So based on all of that, I went to Front Counter, BC in 2009, applied for a tenure to build a cabin. And that was a fairly straightforward way to do things at the time, and a little different today. The bureaucracy has changed a bit, but it was fun at the time. I can remember going into the office one time with a little bit of paperwork. I actually had a hand-drawn map on a piece of paper. There's the lake. There's where the cabin's going to go. And it was a lot of fun at the time, and they were very helpful at Front Counter, BC, and got the tenure in 2009. Okay, so we got the tenure, but there were no plans at the time to start building. The executive, I believe it was in 2014, decided to take a hut survey. And that survey went out and had numerous questions on it. How far should the cabin be? What size should it be? Should it be hard to get to, et cetera, et cetera. And Watersprite Lake area ticked off every one of those boxes. 3 to 4 hours to get in, slightly beginner friendly, and that all came together quite well. 2015, a building committee was formed. And one of the things I have to say about the BCMC, like Greg mentioned, we have so many members. If you need a doctor or a lawyer or a plumber, an electrician, send out a notice. Somebody in the club will come and help you out and do that job. It's really cool to have all these volunteer members to come and help out. So putting things together, the picture that you're looking at right now shows the area where the cabin was built, before it was built, part of the construction. You can see the picture on the right-hand side, the outside insulation, how that was put together. And numerous people came up to help build it. We had the first heli load go in August. We dug the holes, got the foundation built. And it was September the 9th, 2016, when we took in all the materials. One of our club members, Ed Zinger, is a designer, and Ed actually made all the designs for the cabin. Ed and I went into Dick's Lumber in Burnaby and presented the long list of materials. So in 2009, in 2016, we started flying everything in. I believe it was 12 flights and 64,000 pounds of material. And then we started. And then the construction started. I'll share a little story with you. I was up there so much. I was up there so often that there was a rumor going around that I was living up there and renting out my condo. But that's not true. I didn't rent out my condo. Anyways, skipping around a little bit, my head is full of so many stats and whatnot. Before we actually started the construction, we did do a geotechnical survey, and we did get an avalanche survey done. And both of those indicated that the cabin site was safe from avalanches, safe from tidal waves, safe from a safe place to build, basically. So then we got the cabin built and the trail built. And like Alistair said, working with Rec Sites and Trails, we got permission to put the trail in 2017. And looking at these pictures, we had so many people. They're hiking in. They'd carry in their overnight pack, they'd carry in the chainsaw, they'd carry in the fuel and oil, and they did so much work. The volunteers, hundreds of volunteers, are all responsible for getting this cabin built and getting the trail in. And then the people came, and they came, and they came, and they kept coming. Watersprite Lake is beautiful. It's a gorgeous spot. It wasn't too hard to get to. And there are so many people in the province looking for new places to go. And this is a new place, and the people started coming. And it's just interesting. You look at the pictures at the top where all the tents are. So I think it was 2020 or so. It was in around there that it was the day that the straw that broke the camel's back was one day. And remember, we had trail counters up. The first year that we started counting people, there were 4,900 people come up. Every year after that, it's well over 5,000 people a year go up to the lake. It was putting a ton of pressure on the area. People were going everywhere. And like I say, there was this one day, and there's a YouTube video that you can actually look up. And there were 114 cars parked at the trailhead. 114. 263 people came up that day. And that night, there were 47 tents scattered about. Scattered about is the big thing, because there was no infrastructure there. People were everywhere, and toilet paper and poop were everywhere. So jump in here, anybody, Alistair, if you want. At some point in time, Alistair and I took a hike up to the lake one time. And I'll always remember this. It was a slightly misty day, and we got up, and this was Alistair's actually first glimpse of the lake in the area. And Alistair, okay, I'll say it, Alistair.
That's fine. Yeah, go ahead. Tell the story.
You started doing the little dance, saying, I'm going to make a wreck site. I'm going to make a wreck site. And something had to be done. The area is gorgeous. It isn't very large, but you can see that what was happening was the place was getting loved to death. It was getting really abused. So it was, I believe it was 2021. Alistair, correct me if I'm wrong. It was 2021 when Rec Sites and Trails made this into a provincial recreation site. And
Yeah, I could look it up. It's around then that the establishment order was done. We started paying a lot more attention to it when, when the use went through the roof there, when the trail was opened. Um, Certainly
yeah,
there were a lot of unanticipated impacts. And I think
but
that, at the time when the trail, when the cabin, the tenure was issued and whatnot, use in the sea to sky was, the highway hadn't been completed and we hadn't seen this exponential use increase that we've seen in the last 15 years or so. So it was a bit, when you picked it up, there was almost no use up there, and then things completely changed. So definitely.
Yeah, Alistair and Dave, I'll just jump in here. It kind of the opening of the trail up to Watersprite really coincides with the rise of social media and in particular images. So, before 2016, a lot of people to learn about where to go in the Coast Range used a site called Club Tread. And, Instagram really got going in 2010, 2011. There was no images of water sprayed up there. And really, the BCMC had put an announcement up, I think in the fall of 2016, maybe 2017, that the trail to water spray was open. And almost immediately, images like this you see here were all over Instagram. And The BCMC has been in the business of providing access to alpine environments, beautiful ones, for decades. But we had never seen this impact as quickly as it happened and as the scale of it, like how this thing ramped up. It was totally unexpected to us. And it's really social media. I think many on the call probably have seen the log at Joffrey Lakes. The discussion inside the PCMC is the iconic image of the Watersprite Tower that you saw earlier is probably number two on that list. Um, and so, the club had to, address this idea of um, the amplitude of visits really just increasing faster and faster and faster. And as Dave mentioned, there wasn't infrastructure to manage all of those folks. And so the idea of creating a rec site to limit the human impacts on this fragile subalpine and alpine environment was really, really, really needed. It's user management. The area just the capacity it just can't handle 50 tents a night. And so I'll just flip it back to Dave there to talk a little bit about what once the idea of the rec site was landed, some of the infrastructure that the club put in to sort of manage those users.
Yeah, that's cool. So when the cabin was built, of course, we built an outhouse for the cabin. And then the people started coming. You see the picture in front of you right now. We built this outhouse at the trailhead. On a busy day, there will be a lineup. Then if you jump back up to the actual rec site itself at the lake, on the left is the original outhouse, and there were 3 or 4 of us. We thought this is the good place for it, but the snow creep decided otherwise. We worked at it; it just wasn't going to work. So we ended up we found a great new site, and as you can see, the construction of the brand new urine diversion toilet that's now up at the rec site. And that has worked out so extremely well. Now, could you show a picture of the actual tenting area again, Winifred? I just want to point out something where the tents are, if you could. Now, thank you, Winifred. As you're approaching the rec site from the cabin, there's a bit of boardwalk. There's a small kiosk indicating where people were to go. Now, if you look at the right side of the picture is where this is after the rec site was made. Over there, there are now 6 gravel area sites, tent sites. Right now, there are 14 tent platforms. There are 6 tenting sites. And one of the things I managed to do working with BC Parks was I managed to scoff up a couple of their picnic tables. Over in the gravel area, there's a couple of picnic tables for the people on the gravel area. So anyways, that's kind of where we are today. There's boardwalk that's put in, lots of signage, lots of information out there for people to find their way over. And I must say that working with Alistair and Rec Sites and Trails, it's I really couldn't be more pleased. Working together, we have really accomplished something really, really special. And if I remember correctly, Alistair, this is the first alpine recreation site in the province. I think we beat 10 Keel Lake out by a month or two.
Well, no, no, there are quite a few alpine recreation sites in the province. What makes Watersprite and Tonkeal unique is that they're reservation based with an on-site site operator, and there's a fee for service structure, and there's a limitations on the number of users. And it's I guess what we would call an intensively managed site. It's managed in a similar way as our front country sites are. But I wanted to comment a couple of things on the the infrastructure and the installation and the kind of learnings we had there a little bit. One of the really big issues with Watersprite Lake is it's all helicopter access. So when we put in toilets, we put in stuff, we have to really think about the overall cost and maintenance and whatnot. So, there you go. Every year we got a big flight with a huge sling load of tools and whatnot and equipment and fuel for the operator. But when we come to, selecting pit toilets and the type of tent pads, you have to really be very cognizant of the snow load and snow creep and where you put things. All of our outhouses now are on high points instead of low points. Anywhere where there's a slope, you get your snow creep and things just break. It's like a bulldozer moving at 2 inches a month, but it just destroys stuff. So, we had great success with the urine diverting composting toilet. It has some issues. It needs some maintenance and whatnot, but we have 4,000 users in 3 months. And, at the end of the season, we have a pile of poo underneath there, about a meter and a half plus tall. And we come back in the spring and we'll check it this year, and it might be 30 centimeters high. It just disappears over the winter. So, when you're going into the backcountry or into the alpine, really consider investing in the UDT technology. It works extremely well and it saves you flying out poo. When you think about the idea of either letting it rot or flying it out, it's like, well, flying it out sounds silly now. Um, so those were a couple of good things, learnings about the infrastructure. But, we had to provide an opportunity for the public to do this and provide enough of an opportunity we could satisfy enough of the demand that people wouldn't just keep flooding the site. So there's a real compromise about where you reach between what the capacity of the sort of sustainable capacity of the site is and how much infrastructure you can put in versus are you, providing what the visitor wants or enough of it that you get compliance, I guess, or compliance might be too strong of a word. You get people's cooperation and collaboration with you. So it's a bit of a delicate balance. You can't put too many rules in place. If you put rules that you don't have the ability to enforce, maybe they're not worth putting in the first place. Um,
Just to mention infrastructure, you've seen the picture of the urine diversion toilet at the trailhead. We had the outhouse at the cabin. There's a urine diversion toilet at the tenting area itself, and there's a fourth outhouse at the trail, just as you're approaching the lake for the day hikers as well. So there are four outhouses for the people, and like Alistair mentioned, one of the things that came about when the actual wreck site was announced, there were a few comments about, oh my gosh, here we go, the government implementing more rules and regulations. But what was happening up at the site was something had to be done, and I can't stress enough how pleased I am, how cooperative people have been. The parking lot, the trail, the wreck site, and Cliff and Winifred, you can attest to this. It's been clean. It's been really good. The people have been fantastic, and it's really worked out really well. I don't know whether I can say much more or not, except that, my goodness, the volunteers that have put this together have been absolutely fantastic. I put in the first 3 years, and maybe I just kind of wore myself out, but Cliff and Winifred took over last year, and their skill set is different than mine, and the place is better than it's ever been. And anyone has any questions for me right now, or Alistair, I guess, go ahead. That's just about all I can say, is that I put a lot of time in on this, guys.
Yeah, Dave, I think we can hear from Cliff here about the current operations of the wreck site. Cliff?
Thanks, Greg. My introduction to Watersprite was on a snowy, cold day in November. We'd heard about the cabin through the club. And so we got some members together and went on a hike thinking we could find our way. Fortunately, one of them had been there before, during the summer, and we managed to find our way through the rocks and the snow, and up we arrived at Watersprite in poor visibility. And I saw this beautiful building, this beautiful red building. But as I got closer, I realized it was an outhouse. So we had to keep going. We found our way to the hut. We never did see the lake that day. It inspired me. I really enjoyed how difficult it was to get there. So that was something that really inspired me. The difficulty in getting there, how wild and remote it seemed, even though I never saw the lake that day. And Dave invited Winifred and I up during the summer, and that was the first time I actually saw the lake. And I was stunned when I got to the top of the head wall and walked over and looked. I've never seen anything like that before. And now I've been up many, many, many times. And every time I hike up and I come to the top of the head wall, I still have the same feeling. I'm struck with awe every time, just how beautiful it is there. And when Dave invited Winifred and I up to the lake, I think he had the idea that we needed some presence by the BCMC there. We needed hosts to look after the campground. We need people to be spending time at the cabin, talking to the people there, making sure the cabin's working, and just someone to wander around and sit down and chat with people and make sure that they understand how special this place is. And yeah, there's some rules we all need to live by. The wreck site itself has to be sustainable. And there are a lot of different words, a lot of different ideas that define what sustainability is. It can't just be financial. We do collect fees from the campers. So, those funds are there to help look after as much as we possibly can. But there's more than that to sustainability. It's keeping the place clean. So we've got all these outhouses. When BCMC members, volunteers, or the paid camp hosts are up there, we're always looking around. Can we pick up some litter? Let's keep the place clean. Can we have a chat with people to say to them, wow, isn't this a beautiful place? How was your hike up here? You notice how clean it is? Oh, and when you do that and you start chatting with people, then you're able to remind people to pack out their own garbage. And, oh, can you do me a favor when you're ready to leave? Just take a look around the parking lot. If you could even pick up one piece of garbage, it would make a huge difference. So these interactions with people towards cleanliness is a huge part of the sustainability. The user experience has to be at the very top of our mind, and it has to be the highest possible good experience that someone can have, because you want them to take ownership of hiking there, seeing how beautiful it is, and cleaning up after themselves when they head out and head home. At the beginning of the season, which is right now, actually, we are just swamped with preparing to get the wreck site open. There's, I know it's a low snow year, but there's probably still more than a meter of snow up there around the lake. So we have already put a group of volunteers from the BCMC together. We're going to be flying equipment in. Alistair typically supports us. He's got a bunch of work that he does at his office in Squamish. He's got gear, he's got people. So the BCMC and Rec Sites and Trails BC get together in June and get up there and start to prepare for the opening July 1st. Now, in order to do that, again, relationships, partnerships, BCMC is working with rec sites. How do we do all of this without equipment and helicopters? And one of the things that really struck me when I started taking over, the work of looking after Watersprite and getting the campsite open and running was everybody who I called who had who has helped us before and has dealings with Dave Scanlon. Every single one was just super friendly, ready to help, and really interested in doing the best they can to help us get the work done, but make sure it was also a good experience. Just their friendliness and their suggestions, and I couldn't ask for a better experience or a better situation myself than taking something like this over, where all of these relationships have been put in place by someone who put their heart and soul into Watersprite. One of the things that Dave did early on with the rec site is he started looking at, well, who are all these people who are coming here? Dave, are you able to speak up and mention how we got this? We got this chart from all of your data.
I started looking. I would go down the list and see where people came from, and all of a sudden, Australia, Ireland, Korea. That just absolutely blew my mind. And you said it well earlier on that at one point in time, Cliff, that this is not a British Columbia or a Canada. This is a worldwide rec site. My goodness gracious! Just look at that chart, and this is just off the charts. Blows my mind when I look at this. What we have accomplished up there as a group it's just phenomenal. It's just off the charts as far as I could see.
Yeah, I mean, a trip to Watersprite might be someone's, uh, you know, most incredible outdoor adventure they ever have in their life, and they might not even come back if they live so far away. But the opportunity to touch so many people and give people the opportunity to see this place, and the way that we're able to keep all working together to keep it clean. It's you put your heart and soul into it, Dave, and I have to say it certainly got to me, rubbed off on me. That's how I feel. Like, I feel like I'm responsible for looking after Watersprite all by myself. And of course, it's not me. There's an army of volunteers and all these organizations and relationships. And really, I'm pleased and proud to be able to do so and take over where you've left off. Now, there are things that I do, but there are things that many people in the club do to keep this sustainability going. The outreach that we do. I mean, this is going to seem obvious, of course. I mean, nowadays we've got social media. We can put up signs. We can have a presence there. We can try to teach people. But one of the things I learned about signs is most people don't read the sign, or can't read the sign, or they read the sign and they don't follow the sign. So what I have done is I've said to myself, I need to make this personal. So what I do, yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Oh no, I'm just agreeing with you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I've made it personal. So when I'm communicating or run into someone on the trail or up at the campsite, I ask them questions. uh, and hi, how are you doing today? Oh, how was your hike up? It's what a beautiful place, isn't it? Yeah. Do you notice how clean it is? Yes, yes, they'll say, wow, it's really clean. I said, yeah, people are amazing. And if you just start setting that expectation, um, and sometimes I will have a few pieces of litter or something, and I've got it off to the side somewhere. And as hikers are heading out, I say, this got missed. Would you mind making sure this piece of garbage gets down to the trailhead and into your car and home? That would be great. When you start asking people what they think of the area, how beautiful it is, how we're able to keep it wild, and then they start interacting, you can find ways to talk to someone and, sit down, find out where they're at. Um, and they'll ask them questions. They'll start telling you, yes, it's beautiful. Yes, I'm so glad. And some people will offer to volunteer. People will make it their own. I ask people to come back. If someone's going to come back or refer it to someone else, then they're more likely to clean up after themselves when they leave. And I would like to believe that this is really starting to work. Um, Last year, one of the things we implemented for the first time, which I think made a huge change, was to send an email out to campers just the week before and give them an update on conditions and what to expect and what we expect. Like, you know, just a reminder, this is how things go when you're up there: tidiness, cleanliness, no fires, all that kind of thing. And a camp host will be up there to say hello and check your reservation. And so they get this ahead of time. If they've got questions, they can reach out to a person like me, so that, they might want to know, is there water along the way, that sort of thing. So now it's starting to get personal, and they feel if they do something, there's somebody they know who's up there. Then they hike up there, they meet with the camp host, and again, they're getting that same experience. Someone's asking them questions, trying to make them welcome, encouraging them, basically to behave, um, offering them ideas for where to go, where to hike, being a bit of a check-in for people if they want to go for a short hike, and they can always check back in with the camp host. They've made it back to camp safely. Um, One of the things I learned early on was that wilderness is defined by its cleanliness, and we really need to make it personal for our visitors so that they'll keep it that way.
Thanks, Cliff. Just in the interest of time, we want to open this up, I think, for some questions, but I just do have one final comment around kind of the BCMC's long run vision for Watersprite Lake. Obviously, we enter into fixed term agreements with rec sites and trails, and we're very much interested in continuing that relationship far into the future. The BCMC's been around 120 years. We're not going anywhere. And we can easily envision a world 100 years from now where the club is still active, still promoting access to wild places and seeking preservation. So last year, the club sort of decided that it might make a better user experience if we added, at least in particular, one trail going east and up from the lake. And we wanted this to be a bit of an experiment. Historically, the club has built trails through volunteerism, reaching out to those 1,400 members. And we wanted to try something a little different. So the last year, we decided that we'd raise money and hire a professional crew to build this trail. And so that's what we did. We raised just a little over $70,000 on three phone calls and one meeting. So the BCMC supplied about $20,000. The BC Parks Foundation matched that amount. Um, The BC Mountain Foundation also contributed $20,000, and then Valhalla Pure Outfitters out of Squamish, which is a province-wide retailer that is very, very interested in ensuring that access to wild places happen, and so they stepped up very quickly, and so it was incredibly fast that we had the funding in place for this thing. Alistair assisted us in sorting out where this trail was actually going to be. It's within the wreck site. And by the end of September, that trail was in and complete. So it's just a little over 1.1 kilometers. It climbs about 200 meters up above the lake. It's a 19% grade for those of you that are math nerds. And it cost us about $64 a meter to construct. And the vision here is that the club recognizes that Pinecone Burke Park lies about another kilometer. It's a full valley drainage. The eastern boundary of Pinecone Burke the western edge of Pinecone Burke is about a kilometer to the east of the edge of the wreck site. And so at some point, the club knows that the master plan for the Pinecone Burke Park will be complete, and there may be access points at the northern end of the park. And if so, Watersprite will be an easy one for BC Parks to connect to, just simply because so much of the infrastructure, including a parking lot, including public infrastructure like outhouses and so on, and gatekeepers during the peak summer season are there. Well, gatekeepers aren't camp hosts are a better description. So, eventually the club would love to see this area connected over to Pinecone Burke, but we await the outcome of the master plan before we do that. So, you can see here some social media that the club announced. We had over 70,000 people look at our posting in the first 5 days that it was up. That's how sort of social media can impact users accessing the trail. And so we actually asked people, hey, you don't need to come up and see it the first week of October. It'll be there next year. So when we open this year, we expect lots of people to come and make use of that. There are a number of day trips out of the area that can be done. But with that, I'll turn it back over to Ryan and maybe for some questions.
Oh, thanks a lot, guys. That was great. Just waiting for my video to show up. Alistair, just before we jump into the questions here, could you just touch really quickly on like how that conversation went and the decision making in your mind that says, let's turn this into a rec site and the steps that needed to happen for that to happen and to realize that you could do it on a way where you're restricting access to the campground aspect of it. Can you talk a little, just briefly, a little bit about how that process works for folks that are interested?
So, the decision to create the rec site was kind of based on the need that was presented because of the heavy use that was occurring. We government has a few different tools they can use to manage use on Crown land when it comes to recreation, using establishing a recreation site in this case is pretty appropriate. It's a high value area for a number of different reasons. It's obviously recreationally summer and winter, and then there's the cabin that the BCMC both had permission and then they built it. So that adds a lot of value. And there's one of the things that you know, probably apparent to everybody today, but if you put a cabin in, you're going to get sort of peripheral use just associated with it. People are going to come and check out the cabin, or there's a cabin in a trail. It must be a nice place. Let's go there. We may not stay at the cabin, we go. So all those sort of things combined with also the fact that we were having some bear issues with the campers. There's some sort of black bears that are resident around that area. There's mountain goats. There's an ungulate winter range for mountain goats in the recreation site. So, managing recreation for the conservation value that ungulate winter range presented was important. So we've managed that by, rerouting people with the Dreadnought Coal trail away from the ungulate winter range, right? So we're giving people what they want, a route to the Alpine, but we're giving it to them in a place where we want them to go, which is a low impact place, which gives them a nice view, but it gets them away from the mountain goats. Can't really do that unless we have the regulatory structure in place, and that's what the recreation site provides. So the need to have the regulatory structure in place is why we decided to put a recreation site in. Um, However, we looked at this and we said, this is going to cost a lot of money. We're going to have to do a lot. How are we in our budget with what we have able to do that? Well, we have to charge fees to pay for the operations. The actual building of the site doesn't come from the fees. It comes from different funding sources. We've had some money from BC Parks Foundation for ourselves, rec sites and trails, as well as for the trail. Separate stuff. We had some money from them. We've taken money from different budget streams to build stuff over the years. Um, the process is, in this case, went very quickly, but it's an involved process when you're changing a designation on Crown land, which is what a recreation site is. You're changing public access, and you're also changing the kind of I'm having trouble expressing it, but what you're doing is you're doing things that both impact First Nations, it impacts other people, wildlife, forest harvesting, etc. So, through that referral process, we had some discussions, for instance, with licensees in the area saying they were concerned about logging too low down on the slope. So we put the boundary of the rec site at the top of the harvestable sort of elevation for the harvestable timber in that area. So we weren't going to have a conflict with industry. We talked to the biologists and whatnot about the goats, what kind of restrictions we would need to manage the use. Um, there's fairly typical restrictions on alpine camping. We don't really like fires in the alpine because wood grows slowly and you just burn everything up and it has value for wildlife. So we're putting in place a structure so we can take the appropriate kind of conservation measures and the kind of put in place what would make it financially and sort of environmentally sustainable. I can't spend myself money just on vacant crown land. I've got to have a recreation site to like make it all right for me to spend my budget on that. So if we hadn't created a recreation site, the BCMC would just be out there hanging on their own. And that wouldn't be appropriate either. I mean, we have to work together on this stuff because nobody really has all the resources they need to manage it, but together we can pull something like this off.
Can I mention one thing, Alistair? Because the cabin was so popular and so many people were coming up, two of your supervisors, independently on their own at different times, came up to the lake and they looked at it. So they know what was going on. And I think that might have been a help as well, because they already were aware of the situation.
Yeah, and David, the relationship that you and I had built over the years since, 2015, 2016, um, just to going back to the relationships, what that gave us was a lot of trust that we could work together and create something that was going to we were going to be able to manage it, and that's because of relationship. If we didn't have that relationship and the same proposal came to me from just a group that I didn't have that background relationship with, um, it'd be a lot harder to have the faith to move ahead with the amount of effort and resources, staff time, financial contributions over the years and whatnot that we've had to put into it. So if you're considering a similar type setup or recreation site or proposing a similar thing, it's really important to build some trust, but also have a plan and be able to demonstrate that we can build it, we can run it, we can get some kind of resources to help or fund all of the maintenance. At Watersprite, we're pretty close to break even, which is phenomenal.
Alistair, we've got some questions around from people, from listeners here, asking sort of how that financial model works. So I'll try to be quick. Campers pay reservation fees. They can book up to 60 days in advance. We're at 90% capacity or higher every weekend, with some gaps during the week. The income that the site generates supports the operations of the site the 12 to 16 weeks that it's operating. The camp hosts that are there, we try to have complete coverage. We have certainly on weekends, it's complete coverage. There's some folks there. The camp hosts also attend during the week. Those are paid positions, and it comes out of the revenue that the site itself generates. Um, the BCMC operates the site completely standalone from the balance of its operations, so there is no mixing sort of finances at all. It's very much a rec site that operates on its own. We operate it again on a break-even basis.
Yeah,
Uh,
basically through the partnership agreement, the BCMC has given the authority, delegated the authority to collect fees on behalf of the Crown for the use of the recreation site for providing that service. That money goes into a bank account, and that money has to be spent on the site. Rec Sites and Trails policy is that that money has to be spent on the site that it is collected within. Or in some cases, there's a bundle of four sites together, say, within that bundle. So, we do have a very solid, like Greg is it's a very good separation between the finances of the recreation site and the finances of the BCMC. That doesn't mean to say the BCMC doesn't put more effort in than they get out of it. Or can contribute in an extra above and beyond the fees that they collect. That's something you can comment on, Greg. I know
Yeah,
you put a
so
lot of
for
effort in.
yeah, so for example, we have a BC Trails Day this Saturday where we've got more than 20 BCMC members volunteering to do maintenance on the trail from the trailhead up to the lake.
It's
Uh,
really, you got to consider it in its entirety. The trail is integral to the operation of the site and vice versa. So when we can use some of that revenue from the site to on the trail, but generally all of the revenue is absorbed by the helicopter flights and the maintenance. And when we do our startup, we never know what we're going to find. We just had 5 meters of snow sitting on top of everything for 4 or 5 months. We roll up with every tool that we have, just fly in everything, and hopefully we can fix everything that's broken. That's the other thing. Something breaks every year,
Yeah.
and you're always fixing things and you're always doing maintenance. It's a harsh environment. So whenever you're doing stuff, I have I have a special design for a food cache for high alpine, high snow load environments. It's quarter-inch steel tube basically that can take 6.5. It's engineered to take 6 meters of wet compacted snow above it before it fails. You've got to think about your environment sometimes a
Yeah.
bit more.
Cliff, we're just running short on time, so let's go quickly through a couple of these questions here we got in the Q&A. Cliff, I'm wondering if you could help Carol here. She's wondering about the policing of the camping permits up there. I mean, how much of an issue is that? What's the compliance like, and what are you seeing there?
Oh, I love the word policing. I'm not supposed to police. um, uh, so every weekend or every day of every weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, people do come up who do not have a reservation. Uh, we are friendly when they arrive, and the gravel area itself, um, can hold a couple more tents, and typically that's all we need on any given night. We let people know that there's a fee. We explain why, and we get to know them. And as the word spreads, like the more and we've seen a change. We've seen a change over the last few years. The more people who come up and encounter a camp host and they have to pay to stay, and they learn why and how it all works. The more often that happens, the easier it is to, as you said, police it. So that's as far as reservations and who's coming up, and you'll always have somebody come up on a Friday night in a hurry and say, "Oh, I didn't know." All right, well, you know now. Um, and as far as uh, the the behavior and the cleanliness, uh, the uh, it's expected to be a quiet place. That's how it's marketed. It's not a party zone. It's not a party cabin. It's not a party campground. This is for people who want a quiet place to go. This is for people who are maybe getting up early and going after an objective. And as people arrive, the camp host welcomes them and lets them know, this is their place, and quietness is expected. But if you do encounter other campers or other people, and there are disturbances, please feel free to speak up. And if it doesn't quiet down, please feel free to let me know. I'm over at the tent or the cabin. I'd be happy to come over and have a chat. So this is
Yeah.
getting people to buy into it, and Is
It's
that
your only, it's what Cliff's approach, I just very, very briefly, Cliff's approach is really the only effective approach because in an environment like that, actual enforcement officer support isn't available. You're not going to get a guy in there with a helicopter to deal with a ticket for not paying for your camping fees. So a couple of things we did was we set the overall reservation limit low enough that we had capacity to accommodate overflow or non-reservation campers without having an impact on the environment. In other words, we kept a few sites just for this purpose
yeah,
and we didn't reserve them out. The other thing is Cliff has no enforcement authority. Our site operators that work for rec sites and trails or work with us, I should say, they don't have any enforcement authority. They're not police officers, peace officers, or anything. So Cliff's approach is the only one that works. And what really works well is the personnel connection that he makes with the visitors. So the visitors know that if they misbehave, Cliff is the guy they're kind of slapping in the face, right? It's a lot harder to do something bad when you know the person personally now who's going to get annoyed with you.
exactly.
So moving on to the next question, but Cliff's approach is great. He does a fantastic job with that.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Alice.
that nice positive approach, the carrot, not the stick, and making people feel like it's their home as well and that they
Yeah,
value it. I think
yeah.
that's such a great way of approaching it all. We're running out of time, so let's do Kyle's question here. It was the first one to come in. I think it's a great one for us to end on. You can each, if you don't mind, kind of weigh in on this. So he's wondering, looking at Valemont and similar to Carol, she was, highlighting another example where that they're seeing a very similar scenario in Watersprite. Here's Kyle thinking ahead, thinking we're looking at trying to do something similar to this. So looking back at this whole, 15 years of working on Watersprite, what would you have done differently to preemptively manage human impact before opening it up? So looking back, what would you have done differently if you'd known everything you know now? Cliff, why don't you start us off there?
Uh-oh. Um, uh, yeah, I am repeating myself. When I started, I was just doing the work that needed to be done and saying hi to people and, checking registrations and wishing that people would comply and wishing that, the place, that I didn't find a lot of garbage, but I did find things. And I'm like, wow, why would somebody do that? Um, what I learned is you need to make it personal. And so I'm always thinking about it, finding ways to encourage and empower every single person to get them to make them feel like Watersprite is theirs and they need to look after it too. And we do this by just sitting down and chatting with people, finding out where they're at, asking them questions. And before anyone even leaves the house, the campers, they're getting emails from me. They can email back and ask questions, and I'm telling them what's expected up there. And then when they get there, someone else is telling them what's expected there, and not just telling them, but asking them questions, sitting down, visit, being friendly, helping them out. So it's that personal approach.
Yeah, nice. Dave, what would you looking at it all over again? How would you have done anything differently?
I this question has come up many different times, and I would have to really not say no. Um, it's funny you talk about policing, because everyone is so close in the area for the camping area. Everything's fairly close. Uh, if there's a minor little dispute, you look to your left and you look to your right. Other campers are looking at you. There's
Yeah,
a lot of peer pressure, and that peer pressure at times is a big help because you're on their side. You're working with them. You're working for them. And it comes back to, and I keep saying this over and over, that personal connection with people, whether it's the tenters, the people in the cabin, or rec sites and trails, or wherever. It really comes down to that. And Cliff, you're absolutely right.
Alistair, looking back on it, I mean, would you have maybe stepped in sooner or like looking back, like be involved earlier with this if you'd known kind of where it was going?
If Well, okay, today I'm wise enough and old enough to know that if you open if you poke a hole in the sea to sky pressure cooker, it's going to blow up. And that trail is going to be very busy. So, yes, I would have done a lot of stuff differently. Unfortunately, I'm able to do that with Semaphore Lakes, which is another situation like this, which has been developing over the years. Um, what I would have done differently is, you know, maybe we leave aside the cabin aspect of this and we maybe talk about Semaphore because it's a kind of analogous. We got a really popular site, beautiful, seeing increasing levels of use and whatnot. I think what you have to do is you have to look at it and say, all right, we can't make access better to an area until we have the infrastructure. If we know it's going to be busy, we can't make access to an area better until we've got the infrastructure in place to deal with that uptick in use that this new trail or this improved trail will bring, right? And then we need to establish it and set up establish the site, establish the trail, and get the regulatory structure in place before we do before we introduce use so that we can have a blueprint for that use before it happens. So we can say, hey, we're going to build this stuff in a recreation site. And by the way, these are the rules that already apply here. Welcome to our recreation site. Not like, oh, you've been coming here for 5 years and now we're going to try and change everything. We need to set the tone at the start rather than come in afterwards.
Yeah.
Watersprite's not a terrible situation. The response from the BCMC was incredibly responsible and fast and effective. What you guys put in was good. What we did, we were able to act very quickly to establish the site and whatnot and put the rules in place. But really, I would say is don't build it until you're ready for them to come. So don't build a new access till you've got the campsites, the outhouse, the site operator figured out, the establishment done, the fee sort of structure set up if you're going to need fees. Um, and if you're going to see hundreds and hundreds of users a day and you're going to see, 30, 40, 60 camp groups, if you want to manage it well and you want people to behave themselves and not go cutting trees or not wander all over and have social trails, you need an operator. You need to plan ahead for that. You need to have a structure in place for an operator. It could be weekends only because that's usually in 90% of the province, that's where all the use happens. That's the high use times. When you have a dozen campers, the impact's pretty small. They're not going to make much difference. When you have the big numbers, so, you figure out what your capacity is before you do things. You say, we're going to allow 28 campsites. You collaborate with people, you find responsible groups, you do some referrals, you kind of get a lot of different brains working on the problem before you build the new trail and parking lot.
Yeah.
As soon as, if you're going to make something easier to use, more people will use it. You better be ready before you make it easier, I guess this is kind of the.
Yeah.
Alistair, the only thing I would add to that is you need a communications plan, particularly for social media.
Yeah,
Social
that's
media.
very much my weak point for sure. You're right.
Yeah, and so the BCMC built the reservation software that we operate, Watersprite, and other groups have started to recognize that. So if there are other organizations out there that are thinking about trying to take something like this on, come and talk to us. We've got 10 years of learning by doing,
So
and
the
we can.
reservation system has been really crucial in making change too. It's really effective. You might not even have to charge fees, but if you have a reservation system in place, you can say this is the number of users that are appropriate for an area, and that sets a tone for people, and most people respect that. But it also says, oh, I've got a week off. I want to go to Watersprite these days. It's full those days. I'm going to go these days, and I know I'm going to get in those days. And it spreads use out. So I don't actually think less people are enjoying Watersprite because of the reservations. I think people have spread their use out, and the same
Oh
Mhm.
numbers of
yeah.
users are getting to enjoy the site.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be worried about putting a reservation system in. And if you use the software that the BCMC has, not trying to put a plug-in for them, but there's lots of software, but they've got a really pretty good system that works and it's not hard to run. It doesn't cost a lot, you know. And one of the good parts about Watersprite is a portion of the fees we collect at Watersprite goes towards supporting the operation of the reservation system, which happens to be supporting the reservation system at the Tonkia Lake and other people. So Watersprite's kind of creating opportunities for other groups at other places to run reservations at a low cost. Not a lot of input from their own organizations, I think. You can correct me, Greg, if I'm wrong, but I think that's the case.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're dead on that, Alistair, for sure. Um, the last piece, I guess, that I want to kind of mention here is we've been talking a lot about user management, And what we saw from the recently released outdoor recreation strategy is user management in future is going to become particularly more important because demand for visiting wild places is always going to exceed capacity. And, Watersprite, it's a bowl with a lake in it. It can't take very many people all the time. And so there's no alternative other than managing the quantity of users that visit these areas. And through the reservation system, through the legitimacy of rec site and trails, the BCMC is able to manage this. And we've seen what it looked like before, and we can see now. And when we walk around the lake, we can see the alpine meadows coming back. We can see the flowers coming back that were being negatively impacted really within a year or two. And, we're 5 years later, and this stuff's coming back now. It's great.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. I mean, that's nice to hear that it's able to come back because those alpine areas are just so fragile. Um, I think we're out of time here, so I'm just going to wrap things up really quickly. I want to thank our panelists for sharing their expertise and their time, putting their time and their resources into this presentation and sharing all that knowledge with us. Really appreciate it. Thanks to the audience and everyone that asked questions. It's great to have you, and I hope you found something valuable out of this. Um, we will be emailing out a follow-up email with the recording and the slides and some of the resources that we've talked about here. Maybe we can get some background info on that reservation system included in there for anyone that's interested. And yeah, so just keep an eye on your inbox for that. And later this week, this webinar is part of a regular series. Our next one is June 29th, when we'll have John Hawkins here to unpack the provincial government's new outdoor recreation strategy that Greg was just talking about. And it'll build off this conversation in a lot of ways of that future vision and things like user management and how that fits into it. You can watch for the invitation of that webinar in the ORCBC's newsletter, which will come out next week. And if you're not already signed up for that, you can go sign up at our website, orcbc.ca. It's a great place to find out about everything the ORC is doing. And I think with that, I'll end it. Just please do stick around for the survey. It'll pop up in your web browser right after I end the webinar. And with that, I'll say goodbye. Thanks again to the panelists and have a great rest of your afternoon. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.